Hello. The general elections are now over, and we turn attention now to other national matters. What is it about collapsed building? I guess you need to know, and that's where we go tonight in this edition of Weekend File. Incidents of collapsed buildings in Nigeria have reached alarming proportion, such that building collapse occurs in some parts of the country in at most every 6 months. According to a study carried out in the last 15 years, not less than 30 buildings have collapsed within Lagos and other cities such as Ibadan, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. Many more cities are also vulnerable. Cases of structural failure in Nigeria are numerous and can be complex. Experts attribute them to use of defective or substandard materials, defective designs, incompetent conversion or change of use of buildings, lack of supervision, poor town planning and maintenance culture. Quite huge if you ask me. Now, the recent March 13 incident in Lagos, where 20 persons died, including school children, typified inappropriate conversion of residential buildings to multi-purpose structure without recourse to the original plan. Such violations of the code requirements and building misuse inevitably lead to devastation. It is almost certain that human factors or man-made conditions are largely responsible for building collapse in the country. How can the trend be attenuated? Why is it difficult for regulatory authorities to act in good time to avert such nightmare? There are implementable sanctions against those responsible for the collapse of buildings across the country. These are some of the issues to be played up as we kickstart another edition of News, Views and Analysis. I am Kurian Umayo, and this is Weekend File. Now we'll take you on the news. And I will begin from Lagos. Of course, the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, says more rail lines would be constructed across the country this year to boost socio-economic development. The minister made this statement when he hosted his Ghanaian counterpart on a train ride from Lagos while inspecting the progress of work along the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail line. Dotun Oguyemi was on the train ride.
Work along the 156-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge railway has impacted significantly on the Nigerian economy, providing foreign direct investment, over 10,000 direct employment, several indirect job opportunities, and sense of pride for many Nigerians. These workers are at its construction, and the minister's regular inspection is helping to keep the pace of work faster. The minister, in company of his Ghanaian counterpart, Joe Gate, embarked on a train ride, first along the narrow gauge from Ebutemeta to Iju, and then on the standard gauge to kilometer 85 after Abeokuta.
For us, how to construct more railways. We are working towards completion of this standard gauge Lagos and taking on the standard gauge from Ibadan to Kano. Minor amendments. All that we are.
For us in Ghana, ECOWAS is important. New connectivity is important. Trade between African countries is important. And we are having unofficial talk to the minister, no official. We are looking at the day where one day you can sit in a train in Lagos and come down to Accra.
What we have seen now is the fact that the legislative arm as well as the executive arm, when they work together, you get an instant positive impact.
Other stakeholders believe the rail connectivity will improve transportation and cargo delivery.
My interest is cargo, distribution of cargo, and the rail offers that unique opportunity because of the cost of transportation will come down.
The Minister of Transportation charged the contractors to extend lane of tracks and beams from kilometer 85 to kilometer 98 by the end of next week. In Lagos, Dotun Oguyemi, NTA News.
And from the judiciary comes this report that the Nigerian Law Report Commission is urging a review of the country's company tax and forex to boost more revenue generation. Commissioner, Nigerian Law Reform Commission, Professor Jumai Audi, hinted on this while defending 2019 budget proposal before the Senate Committee on Judiciary. National Assembly correspondent Abdullahi Aminu reports.
It's an ongoing project. When the government came on board, petrol prices went high. Government needed funds, and the Law Reform Commission made a recommendation in its bill.
We passionately urge the committee to make greater efforts in improving the country's budgetary allocations.
Presentations on the 2019 budget proposals were made by all judicial agencies and institutions in the country.
All the agencies under the Ministry of Justice, they had capital budgets reduced. So this issue will be better discussed with them to actually understand, because they know.
Meanwhile, Senate and House Joint Committee on FEMA received presentation on 2019 budget estimate by the acting managing director of the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, Nuruddin Rafindadi. Committee Chairman Senator Magnus Abe spoke on the need to address current problem of debt and lack of proper funding for FEMA's statutory function. From the National Assembly, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
A two-day capacity training program intended to equip staff of ministries, departments and agencies with skills on how to use CBN's gateway platform for receipt and payments has ended in Minna, the Niger State capital. Dauda Mohammed reports that the participants were drawn mainly from the MDAs in the North Central Zone.
Almost 4 years after implementation, different challenges and technicalities with the system, which uses payments through electronic courier process, have been observed. The training for users of the TSA, which include initiators, reviewers and approving officers of payments, is part of efforts to update MDAs on developments in the system. Victor Aleto, from a leading electronic payment courier, made presentation on different challenges of reconciliation payments and how to address them.
The misconception of the TSA was that TSA is taking money from the system. It is not true. It's more or less enabling government to know the source and the utilization of every fragile government resources.
The intention is that when we are trained, we'll go back to our office and train others or put others through, so that any of their questions will be able to answer them.
It has added a lot of value to our payment system, and it has enhanced accountability in the system.
The training program was interactive, with participants making comments and asking operational questions. In Minna, Dauda Mohammed, NTA News.
The Customs Strike Force team of the Controller General of Customs says goods with duty-paid value worth more than 450 million naira were intercepted between January and March 2019. The national coordinator of the unit, Deputy Controller Abdullahi Kerawa, disclosed this at a briefing in Lagos, as Mike Olaleye reports.
This 40-feet container is filled with 304 cartons of imitation jerrys. It is among the latest seizure by the Customs Strike Force team. Although these items are not on the import prohibition list, they were intersected for false declaration.
The declaration, that is the entry made to customs, is mixed bead mold. The two are quite different. The person did this to evade payment of the correct duty.
Other items include bales of new jeans, ladies' belts, handbags and T-shirts valued at over 38 million naira, but were falsely declared as used auto parts. The officials also arrested 4 suspects for importing used tires, but concealed among crates of beer. A 2007 model of Toyota Avalon was seized at the D-Roko axis of Ogun State, while the smugglers were forcefully seeking escape routes.
We should cooperate and we should work with each other to ensure that we keep our country safe and ensure that the desired revenue accruable to government is collected.
The seizure of over 6,000 bags of rice valued at 85 million naira and 500 bales of second-hand clothing continue to agitate the minds of the Customs Strike Force team on Nigerians' preference for anything foreign. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NTA News.
The Minister of Defense, Mansur Danali, has said Nigeria has recorded significant achievements in the fight against terrorism and is in the process of demining affected areas and building communities. Now, the minister presented Nigeria's statement at the United Nations Peacekeeping Ministerial on uniformed capabilities, performance, and protection of civilians at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The minister also announced that Nigeria has put in place adequate measures in enhancing the performance of its troops and protection of civilians during peacekeeping operations. These include effective pre-deployment and in-mission training for troops, zero tolerance to sexual exploitation and abuse. He explained that Nigeria's participation in UN peacekeeping has declined significantly of recent, mainly due to her commitment to the war on insurgency in the northeastern parts of the country and sub-regional peacekeeping commitment. In spite of this, however, the minister assured the meeting that Nigeria will continue to play its role in supporting the United Nations and other stakeholders to achieve international peace and security. Now, still on security matters, the Special Task Force Operation Delta SAFE says cooperation among security personnel has resulted in increase of oil production in Niger Delta area. This became evident when the Northern Youth Council of Nigeria conferred the title of Garkuwan Matasan Arewa, meaning Shield of the Northern Youths, on the commander of the Special Task Force, Rear Admiral Apochi Suleiman. Ayat Prezi reports.
Rear Admiral Apochi Suleiman, who took over the command of the Special Task Force in 2016, is adjudged by various groups to have shown leadership and commitment to the mandate.
That if it is possible for him to share the strategies he have used to curtail these elements or criminals that have been disturbing Niger Delta, can also replicate such with the same kind of person element that are actually been kidnapping people in northern Nigeria.
Rear Admiral Apochi Suleiman described the award as a call for increased performance.
At the time we took over this operation, the production level of the oil in this country were ranging between 900,000 barrels per day. But as it is now, due to the effectiveness of our operational activities that have kept the environment calm and secured, we are getting well over 2 million.
He appreciated the Northern Youth Council of Nigeria and other bodies for acknowledging efforts of the task force and promised not to rest on their laurels. From the headquarters of Operation Delta Safe, Yenagoa, Aya Prezi.
In other stories, the Anchor Brewer Scheme, an initiative of the present administration, is gaining more grounds with more people venturing into farming. Yusuf Jeka reports that the observation was made in Yola.
The demonstration farm is the first of its kind in the northeast region in view of its nutritional and economic value and has provided job opportunities to the people. Inspecting the project, representatives of Central Bank of Nigeria and Nigeria Export-Import Bank expressed satisfaction with the giant strides by NACAS towards actualizing the nation's agricultural dream.
It will now help in reducing poverty and also creating jobs and employment.
The chairman of NACAS, Sadiq Dawari, encouraged farmers to take advantage of the Anchor Brewer Scheme and called for more support to the association to meet up its objectives.
We believe that at the end of the day, we'll have a very fruitful program.
However, the association has organized an enlarged meeting where 2018 farming year and the prospects of the association for 2019 with much expectation were discussed. In Yola, Yusuf Jika, NTA News.
For harmonious and conducive working environment to prevail, Government and industry unions must see themselves as partners in progress by working for the good of the society rather than being ideologically rigid in their relations. This is thrust of the 34th inaugural lecture of the University of Abuja delivered by Professor Isaac Nnamdi Obasi on the need for a template to resolve the lingering tussle between ASU and the federal government.
I argue that both should change their perception of each other, which is in antagonistic terms. They have to change and adopt what collective bargaining prescribes. You must see your partner as a partner in progress. They must move along pragmatic, constructive, and cooperative relations.
While speaking on the theme, Public Policy on Management of Industrial Relations, Professor Obasi noted that such lectures will help academics attain professionalism. Kano Emirate Council has organized special prayers for continued peace and stability for Kano State and the entire nation. The prayer session was presided over by the Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II, who urged those elected into offices to put service to humanity above self. Abdullahi Mustafa reports that Governor Abdullahi Ganduje of Kano State was among dignitaries that attended the prayer session.
It has been the tradition of Kano Emirate Council to hold weekly prayers for peace and prosperity in the state since Emir Muhammad Sanusi's ascension of the throne in 2014. This time, it was a special prayer session for Allah's guidance to the newly elected leaders as well as peace and tranquility in the country. It was led by the Chief Imam of Kano, Professor Muhammad Sani Zaharuddin. Emir Muhammad Sanusi II admonished those who made it at the end of the recently conducted general elections to put the interests of the nation and its people first, as the days of politicking are over. He also enjoined them to support and forgive one another, irrespective of political differences. In attendance at the special prayer session are Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, National and State Assemblies members elect, as well as religious and community leaders. In Kano, Abdullahi Mustafa, NTA News.
Bassa and Ebura communities of Toto local government area in Nasarawa State have committed to harmonious coexistence. This follows the setting up of joint peace and reconciliation committees to address age-long conflict and misunderstanding between the two ethnic groups. Joshua Ojito reports that the peace initiative was brokered by the state government.
Bassa and Igbira have for long been in persistent crisis with serious consequences on harmonious living and economic activities. Since the misunderstanding by the groups is coming with some criminality, the state government is tackling the issue with the contribution of federal government security initiative in charge of Nasarawa, Benue and Taraba states. The clear message is for the groups to give peace a chance.
Peace will be enduring. Government will deal decisively with anyone that tends to frustrate these peace efforts.
And so if there's any security issue coming up, this matter can be taken to this committee.
The two ethnic groups resolved to work with Operation Wild Stroke towards mopping up illegal arms and other dangerous weapons in the area. Also, they agreed to stop further reprisal attacks on each other in the interest of peace and progress of their areas with immediate effect. In addition, security agencies are to review the status of checkpoints mounted en route to some villages on both sides and to act appropriately pending the return of Bassa to their communities. The meeting further deliberated on the issue of Bassa chiefdom with a view to giving it effect. In Lafia, Joshua Ojito, NTA News.
A presidential delegation of 3 ministers has visited Brenin Kebbi to sympathize with the government and people of Kebbi State over the death of some personalities from that state. Usman Abdullahi Shehu has the details.
The delegation comprised of Minister of Interior Abdurrahman Bello Dambazo, the Minister of Justice Abubakar Malemi SAN, the FCT Minister Musa Bello, the State Chief of Protocol Ambassador Kazauri, and Special Assistant to the President Alhaji Sarki Abba. The delegation were received by Governor Abubakar Atiku Bagudu at the residence of his late brother Alhaji Faruku Bagudu. The Minister of Interior who led the delegation said President Muhammadu Buhari extended his condolence to the people of Kebbi State and the governor over the demise of his brother, Alhaji Faruku Bagudu, and two elder statesmen, the former secretary to Kebbi State government, Alhaji Bala Musa Sakaba, and the member House of Representatives representing Yawuri Shanga Ingaski, Alhaji Muhammadu Dantani, who died recently. Governor Abubakar Atiku Bagudu thanked President Muhammadu Buhari for sending the delegation, describing it as an honor to the entire state. A special prayer was offered for the repose of the souls of the late persons. The delegation also condoled the family and prayed to Allah to give them the fortitude to bear the loss. In Burning Kebbi, Usman Abdullahi Shehu, NTA News.
Now, it's good to have you with us on Weekend File tonight. And we are going to be digging up all the information regarding many tales of building collapse in Nigeria. Correspondence report from across the nation after the break. Do join us again.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
The Industrial Training Fund, ITF, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, cordially invites the general public to the official closing ceremony of the National Industrial Skills Development Program. His Excellency, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, GCON, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, will be the special guest of honor. Other guests during the ceremony include the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Malam Mohammed Bello, and the Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, Haja Aisha Abubakar, who will be the distinguished guest. The Director General of the Industrial Training Fund, Sir Joseph Ari, will be the chief host. The closing ceremony is scheduled to take place as follows. Date, Thursday, 4th April 2019. Venue, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua Center, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. Invited guests are expected to be seated by 9:30 a.m. ITF, developing the nation's human resources. Suleyol Fred Chagu, Head Public Affairs for ITF Management, announcer.
Tomorrow is coming.
Team huddle.
But we lost.
Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
And we thank you for staying with us. Now we'll begin our correspondence report from Abuja here, where a directive to subject old structures to integrity test is in force. As a matter of fact, the measure is part of efforts by the regulatory authorities in the fact that there were vast cases of building collapse in the territory. Now, Shaibu Onoze Yakubu now takes it on from here.
Abuja, the nation's capital, is indeed a planned city. As beautiful as the city may look, it has had its fair share of building collapse in recent times. The building collapse in Jabi in 2018 sent shivers down the spine of many residents. Then early this year, another incident occurred when a building along Gambia Street in Area 11 Gariki came down. Though no life was lost, this worrisome trend calls for urgent action.
When buildings are abandoned and all of a sudden you come and resume immediately to start the development, parts of the reasons why you have. And secondly, the case of not meeting standard, where developers cut corners.
Some buildings, both completed and those under construction in the territory, are on the verge of collapse, like these ones, including schools.
It's a policy in Abuja. Wherever there is such an incident, automatically the owner of that property has lost his title. The FCT administration has directed all property owners 10 years old and beyond to submit as built drawing to Department of Development Control for reassessment and recertification.
The developer is to be sanctioned. We are going to sanction the developer for undertaking a major renovation work without seeking for approval from the Development Control Department.
The coordinator says the council will not rest on its oars until the nation's capital is rid of incidences of building collapse. Shuaibu Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
The incessant building collapse in Lagos has been blamed on structural defects arising from quackery. In this report, Paul Omokago examines other factors and the attendant impact on lives and property.
A report by the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing indicates that over 54 cases of buildings collapse were recorded in 2017 across the country. Records also show that 33 buildings collapsed in Lagos alone in 2012. 2013, 2014, 2016, 2018 and 2019 were not exempted in the history of collapsed buildings in Lagos. While Itafaji incident as well as two others within 2 weeks have raised concerns on the integrity, safety and status of buildings in Lagos, analysts say non-compliance with approved design have often led to structural failure. This, they say, is in addition to failure to carry out soil tests, use of fake and substandard building materials, as well as inadequate supervision.
The ideal thing for you is to have a structural engineer do the designs, but where the structural engineers are not available, the civil engineers can do the designs. They are supposed to be on site to monitor the construction.
And when you put more loads on a structure that was designed to take very light loads, you are going to find that it will fail with time. This collapses, it's a failure in the controls that we see that is causing so much loss of life and property.
Alarmed at the speed of building collapse in Lagos, residents called on government to ban development of high-rise buildings. This is not unconnected with the attendant cost on lives and property, as 19 people died in the Itafaji tragedy.
We just want government to intervene to this matter. We don't want like 2-3-story building in this vicinity. Look at a lot of houses here that has, even though have cracked.
Experts say the impact of such disaster is huge on the society, as it cannot be quantified with survivors who lost their parents or children, in addition to trauma arising from internal displacement. In Lagos, Paul Omukago, NTA News.
In Oyo State, a holistic approach is being taken to enforce standards in the building industry. This step is prompted by the recent incident of building collapse in Ibadan. Lanre Wele takes it up from here.
For structural engineers and urban planning experts and other stakeholders in Oyo State, prevention is better than cure should be the watchword guiding construction works to stem the tide of incessant building collapse and attendant issues. The Oyo State Governor, Abiola Ajimobi, recently unveiled 33 excavators and rolled them out immediately to all local governments in the state to spur things into action in ensuring that there is prompt response to such incidents in the state.
We have already even designed a system in our bureau. If you put up any structure and you don't have a certificate of completion, which will certify that the building is good enough for habitation, then you don't have a building.
let all state governments establish monitoring body that will incorporate professional monitoring organizations like Koren, the architect. They also have their own monitoring team. They will be able to ensure that they monitor projects during construction for compliance. They are not approving authority, but they will ensure compliance.
Second is the enforcement of rules guiding building of any structure in the state, which Nigerians said flaunting of those rules is what often leads to building collapse.
Diligence, integrity, those are involved, because if you have integrity, when you are told to use a 16 mm iron rod, you will not go and use a 12 mm.
Not everybody is going to go to university. There are technical schools where we have professionals teaching them, but we don't do that again. So these days, people would rather go to Togo to go and get artisans from Togo to make their buildings.
That is something that the government are doing in those days when we are young, that they don't do it nowadays. And that is the enforcement of the environmentalists.
Stakeholders say the key to avoid incessant building collapse is constant supervision of buildings right from its inception to the completion from bodies saddled with the responsibility. In Ibadan, Larry Bilayi, NTA News.
And we'll be taking more of the analysis on this matter with our guest and president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers in the person of Engineer Adekunle Mokolu, and that will be in just a moment.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online, or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
But we thank you for staying with us. Now, multiple collapse of buildings in Lagos and Ibadan, and as a matter of fact, in other parts of the country, actually prompted our focus on building collapse in Nigeria. And the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Engineer Adekunle Mokolu, joins me now. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, first of all, let's get your take on this matter. You are the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, which of course means that anybody involved in any engineering activity must be part of this umbrella body. So what's your take on building collapse in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much once again. My take on building collapse is that it's an embarrassment to the nation, in the sense that it is a manifestation of gross negligence of knowledge, professional practice, professional engagement of the engineers in this country, and a situation where people just do what they like. Building collapse does just not happen like that, because in a building, the structure must be put together in a very knowledgeable way. Okay, so if you are not trained properly to select the right materials and be able to have the knowledge of putting them together, then the building will eventually collapse. It will first go under distress, and after distress, then you have collapse. But the cheering news is this, I must tell you, that things have now changed. Things have changed because If you had called me 2 Saturdays ago, I probably would not come for this program, because I've been on this program for building collapse, and all the time I was agonizing. And you recall that at the last episode, my appearance, I told you that I would never come and talk about building collapse again. Why is that so? Because Nigerian Society of Engineers have done everything humanly and professionally possible to be able to ensure that there is no building collapse in this country. And where there are collapse of buildings, somebody will be responsible. And the person that will be responsible will be one of our members. But then, on the 27th of March 2019, Cherry News, the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria signed the amendment of Current Act 2019. And that act provides that you can no more, as a private person, build or erect any structure or develop any estate without the involvement of Nigerian professionals responsible for it. That is, the engineers, the engineering technologies, the engineering technicians, and the engineering craftsmen. And that's the reason why, really, I need to seize this opportunity to thank the President, Muhammadu Buhari, for doing this. And, of course, by extension, the members of the 8th National Assembly, for helping us to promote this bill. Particularly, let me just single out the chairman of Committee on Works, Honorable Toby Okechukwu. Incidentally, he's a lawyer, but he was so passionate about what we were talking about, and he was able to work with us to wrap this up to the extent that on the 22nd of March, this was signed into law. Now, a lot of things, reasons are responsible for collapsed buildings. In the report that we had earlier on, all these have been enumerated, but the truth of the matter is this. One, most of the collapses were commercial buildings. That is, the owners were not really the ones that will reside in them. They were supposed to be let out to people or so on. Or family house where they are warehousing their members who probably did not have any accommodation. But then, let me quickly say again, our population is increasing every day. And because, in a way, we have neglected the rural areas, development of the rural areas, so people will eventually, try to come to the city, and they need a place to stay.
And there's conjunction. But I want to stop you there and take you another very, very pertinent issue. And that has to do with the categorization of the kind of buildings that collapse in Nigeria. Some are under construction, some are old structures that have been there for over 40 or 50 years, and have already been, they may have been cracking because of has already developed a lack of integrity. And there are also buildings sited in waterways. Right. And one begins to ask, even with the act that's been signed into law that you've just commended, how are you going to checkmate people responsible for construction of houses across this nation? In Abuja alone, we could have up to more than 2,000 areas that buildings are going on at the moment. So how would we begin to now tackle the issue of people who build on waterways and then old structures that are gradually giving way, like the one that happened on the 13th of March? The house has been cracking, and there are other cracked houses around there, and they have been mapped out for demolition for many months now, if not years, and nothing was done until people die there before they do that. So I want to know the kind of mechanism that you're going to put in place to see how you can attenuate the preponderance of a collapse building in Nigeria.
Well, it's a very easy matter. I can tell you that straight away, because we are talking about non-living things that the body of engineering practice have the requisite, what we call the behavior of the materials, strength of materials, and the property of materials. In this country, there was a time the Nigerian engineers thought that the only thing that really has standard is what is beyond the touch of Nigerians. Anything that has to do with standard, people just don't want to follow it. Now, we have this law because when there was no law, we were called intruders. Sometimes we even go to the sites when we know that there are some things that are not done properly, to even be able to offer advice. Somebody like me, my life had been threatened before. There was a time when 4 of our members slept in the police cell. Some were taken to prison because there was no law to state that they have the right to go to that property and inspect it. Now, if you look at all this, not to talk about processes of materials, the procurement of them, in this country now, how much can SON do, Standard Organization of Nigeria? We've been partnering with them. Sometimes, by the time you go to this trader, your reinforcement is not according the diameter. It's not the proper one. It's giving you another thing. And then the properties, the ones that are being sold, is like the phenomenon of fake drugs. So now, the buildings do not collapse just like that. The ones that collapse under construction is because the self-weight of those materials, the structure cannot even take it. That is, we call it the load, the self-weight. So the thing will just collapse. And most of them collapse during rainy season. Why? Because when rain falls, most of our blocks, they retain water because they are not well made. Because you know that most of them, by the time you just put them on the ground, they spoil. And there's what we call capillary effect. Water comes in, they get so heavy, and then the building will say, I am tired. They just go down. And that's why you see the reinforcement. You are not, when a building collapses, a proper building should collapse on its own. You are not supposed to even see the reinforcement. The reinforcement is supposed to cut, as if, a rubber just cut. Because the reinforcement is supposed to take what we call the tension. So the ones that are built, that have been built, and they have been occupied, most of the time we have problem of, bearing capacity of the soil. Sorry. And let me just give you this thought concerning Abuja. In the early 80s, when we were building Abuja, our roads, there were a lot of topsoil and so on and so forth, what we call unsuitable material. Some places where we dumped them, okay, people thought in the 1990s and 2000s, they thought that, it's a very firm ground. No, it's not a firm ground. If they had employed professionals to design that building, that person would have done the soil test and be able to determine the bearing capacity of the soil and do a proper building. And again, anybody can make mistake. So if you're a professional and you made a mistake, then you have to pay for it.
All right, so let me ask you this. We have COREN, which is a regulatory,
yes,
body. And of course, I'm sure that all the members of Nigerian Society of Engineers, they all have something to do with COREN. And we also have other regulatory authorities, perhaps at the state level. Because we're talking about what happened in Lagos or Port Harcourt recently. We're talking about a locality where you also have a regulatory body which is under the state administration. So what I want to ask you is this. Is there any kind of synergy between the Nigerian Society of Engineers, COREN, and other bodies that do similar jobs in states of Nigeria? Because you can't be in Abuja, for instance, and be monitoring all those dilapidated buildings in Lagos.
COREN is all over Nigeria. That's one information I want to give you. And then we establish what we call engineering regulation and monitoring committees all over the country. And they are, they come in under our branches. We have 75 branches all over Nigeria of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. But the thing is this, before now, like I said, before 22nd of March 2019, we were regulating our personnel, the professionals, okay, to make sure that on any project, the engineer is there. But when it comes to private projects, you know, all the building collapses we are talking about, few of them belong to government. Very few. About maybe 2-3% of them. Most of them belong to private people. Now, coming to development control all over the country, the development control all over the country are not really interested in the stability of the structure. They are interested in the setbacks and so on and so forth. The other thing that we have been pushing for the states is that every state must have a master plan. If you don't have a master plan and a proper land registry, people will do whatever they like. And that is the truth of the matter. So you find a situation whereby if you want to do the proper thing, the states, the local government must have a master plan. There must be an office within the state where all these building, what is it called? All the as-built drawings, both the permits and so on, for the stability of the structure and the various setbacks according to planning regulations will be deposited in that place. In Abuja, they call it development control.
But is there any synergy between these bodies and your owners? So, you know, because what I ask the question is that if there is no synergy, then whatever law that has been signed, act that has been signed into law may not be effective or efficient in terms of implementation.
The current can now stand on his own now. We've been very frustrated with most of these, you know, development control offices because they have their own, you know, challenges too. But with current, now with this new amendment that we now have the authority to engage directly. So we don't need any secondary vehicle again. We now can engage directly the developer, the procurement officers, those who are procuring materials, and then the professionals in charge of the construction. So it's a total thing. And we are that's the reason why, you know, this amendment was so important to us. Why? Because even with the development control officers, they don't listen to them. Sometimes when they put the X mark with the red paint, some of them take it as a sign of quality. And in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the house is already roofed. Before you know it, I beg, sir, do all these things. It is when professionals are now in charge. That is the time anything that has to do with regulation and enforcement is effective.
I think quackery is one issue that you need to speak on, right? You know, because from all you have said, that means that many people, unprofessionals, engage in construction of buildings without being certificated. That's exactly what it means. Because I recall having covered an assignment by Korean where they actually sanctioned some of their members who erred, you know, in one way or the other, and with also respect to building collapse. But for what you have said, it means that Korean cannot go outside the professionals to begin to, you know, punish you. But now with this act you're talking about, Korean can now, you know the quacks.
The quacks. I'm sorry to say.
Go ahead.
For the quacks, you know, Korean had to go to ICRC to sign an MOU with them because we did not, until now, have the right to prosecute the quack. We can only migrate that quack to ICRC to help us, you know, sanction the quack. But the thing is this, the population is so huge. There is need for us to cultivate the culture of engaging professionals in anything we do. The thing is that everybody thinks, you know, especially those who have made little money. And let me tell you another thing. Any country where people make pockets of money like that, you are bound to have issues like this. And the only remedy is monitoring, regulation and enforcement. Regulation, monitoring, and enforcement. Once you enforce the law, then you are home and dry. The other thing I want to tell you is this. When you talk about deterioration of building leading to collapse, building cannot stand on its own and be able to be that functional without supporting the support of the infrastructure around it. And the major infrastructure that must go around it is to ensure that ingress of water into its foundation is prevented. So when you have ingress of water into the foundation, or you have a structure like in Lagos, very close to the sea, the moisture contains a lot of salt. And salt is degrades reinforcement if it's not well protected. Most of those houses you see at Ajele and so on, they were not, the concrete were not really well vibrated. The houses were not well constructed, in short. So over years, there will be what you call corrosion in the steel, in the reinforcement. And when steel is corroded, it starts degrading and lose its property to be able to make the building stand. So these are the issues that
and there's another one. There's another one that is very, very important, and that's a conversion of buildings, for multi-purposes. Perhaps a building constructed for residential purposes now be transformed into a multi-purpose structure where you have more form of machineries operating there, a school as well as other businesses. But let me ask you this question: is there any interdisciplinary relationship between you and other professionals who have something to do with construction? For instance, architects, builders, well, of course, in your own case, civil engineers. Because I've seen some cases where an architect, is constructing, but he has knowledge of what to do. Do you have interdisciplinary or interprofessional relationship with all these other professionals?
Well, we have. But what I want to tell you is that these promoters, the developers, they don't engage professionals when they are doing the construction. That is the bane of the whole problem. The architect will design maybe a 2-story building or whatever for residential, like you said. And there's what you call, when we are designing, life load and all these other loads, wind load that we consider. Now you do the foundation to be able to carry what has been specified. But when the developer wants to put another floor, maybe he just got a little bit of money from a business or enterprise, and he said, look, instead of going to another land to develop a new building, why can't I just put another floor? Whereas the footing of the foundation cannot carry it.
Then who monitors it? That's the problem. Who monitors it?
That is the problem. All right. See, let me tell you, the person that should monitor it was nowhere until now.
Okay, let's hope that it will be better going forward, because of this act that is signed into law. At this point, I'd like to thank you immensely for sharing your thoughts and, of course, your professional know-how in this field. Thank you indeed for coming on Weekend File.
Thank you very much.
I've been speaking with the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Engineer Adekunle Mukolu. This is Weekend File. When we come back, we'll bring you a sports update. Now to sports. Coach Thomas Denebe promises good outing by the Super Falcons in France as Nigeria Professional Football League is set for Week 13 fixtures Sunday. Kenema Bodike tells us more on Sports Update.
Head coach of the Super Falcons